Are you looking for a new way to get and stay healthy? Well, I put together a roadmap just for you, designed to help you feel good and stay sane through the integration of yoga, meditation, digestive health, whole food nutrition, and herbal medicine. It's also an overview of some of the progressive, multidimensional approaches that I've come to use with my one-on-one clients to help them connect to the body's innate wisdom in order to heal from chronic pain, exhaustion, and even trauma. So I can't wait for you to read this. So go to alyssafinnick.com now to get your hands on this 16-page guide today, or check out the show notes for the link. Welcome to the Wild Wisdom Podcast. I'm your host, Alyssa Finnick, and this is your space to learn more about the importance of slowing down, taking care of yourself, and the mind-body connection. And most importantly, how to reclaim your health by listening to your body's innate wisdom and reconnecting with the earth. Hello ladies, welcome back. I'm excited to share one of my most favorite conversations with kindred spirit, fellow entrepreneur, raw food chef, herbalist, and all-around wellness mama extraordinaire, Audrey Barron. She opened Indiana's very first totally plant-based, non-GMO and gluten-free cafe when her son was 1.5. Just a little bit older than my Josephine is now. And she and her husband also opened their urban farm while planning for and giving birth to their second child. So she's a woman on a mission. But I totally can relate to this. She talks about how the more she experiences the magic of her children, the more she wants for them. And I'm sure some of you can relate to that as well. So things like clean food, clean water, clean air, and a world with more peace and less suffering. So she's making her small contribution by growing and serving clean food and sharing her wisdom. And we talk about a lot of that today and more. You are in for a treat. So I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I enjoyed having it. And I look forward to hearing your comments and your insight and what you picked up. And enjoy. Hi, welcome Audrey. I'm so excited for you to be here today and to talk to you.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I have always admired you and what you've created in Indianapolis. And you know, I'm a member of your new Medicine Woman course, and I love learning all about herbs and of course enjoying the raw food of the restaurant you own. And so I'm really excited to share today your story and more about what you've put together and more about you and why herbalism, healthy living, the way we eat, and all of that is really helpful for our audience. So what I like to start out with, because I found that our audience really loves to know what brought you into this world. You know, you've been trained in Mayan abdominal massage, which everyone knows I love, herbalism, which I love, and I'm learning more from you in your course, and then as a raw food chef, and I'm sure more, but like, what was your journey like that brought you to this?
Well, I would say, and I'll expand on this, but it really comes down to, I was searching for a way to feel good. And that's where it all began. So I grew up living out in the country and we gardened, but we also had a fair bit of processed food, you know, food from boxes. And so I kind of got the appreciation of nature and gardening, but I also was drinking Nestle Quick and eating cereal every morning and, you know, that kind of thing. So
typical American stuff, especially in the country.
That's right. And my mom did a pretty good job of making sure that we weren't drinking lots of soda or anything like that. So I would say for the 80s and 90s, it was fairly healthy, you know, not over the top eating Doritos and soda and stuff. But then I got into college. So, and for anybody who's gone down that journey, it can be, you know, a big shift, a big change in a lot of ways. And for me, as far as my health, it really took a downturn my freshman year. So for, it was probably just the the combination of a lot of different things. Living in a dorm, which it's just like you're stuffed in there with a bunch of people, and kids who are on their own for the first time, eating tons of processed food, probably drinking a little bit. I know I certainly was, enjoying, alcohol at parties and things like that. All of those things that bring your immune system down. And I would say at the time, I don't know what it's like now, but on our college campus, it was a challenge to find healthy food. Mm-hmm. So there were cafeterias, and the way we did it, like the tuition kind of, your food was a part of that. And so you just had a little card and you swiped it. And I just remember, oh my God, look at all these different pastas, and, you could grab cookies and all the things, and being on your own for your first time with no parents telling you what to do. I was just like, oh my gosh, just eating whatever I wanted. And of course you still have that metabolism at that age too. And, but I remember I was getting sick a lot, like colds, flus kind of things. And at one point I got so sick, I remember thinking, am I going to die? Like it hurt so bad. I couldn't breathe. I called my dad crying, like, Dad, I can't get out of bed. You need to take me. And I remember he took me to the doctor's office, and I was laying there, or like kind of like half laying in this chair waiting for them to see me. And I can't remember what it was, but it was pretty, whatever it was awful. And that was kind of the first, like, oh man, something maybe needs to change. And so then into the rest of my college years, I started to experience extreme fatigue. I started to experience depression, continued to get sick a lot. And then into my early 20s, it became like even more kind of like darker depression, trouble sleeping. I ended up taking sleeping pills. Then I ended up being on antidepressants. And it was just like this snowball effect, right? That just really started, I feel like, my freshman year. And this was in the early 2000s. And at the time, Google was barely a thing, like the internet was barely a thing. I mean, let alone Google. And so it wasn't like just at a click of a button, you could find, what do I do with this symptom or whatever? And so, sure. And you look on TV, and again, I know this is dating me, but like it was before Netflix and all the things. And so you had.
That's okay. I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
In fact, this whole college journey sounds exactly like what I went through.
Okay. So like, you look on the TV, and what are they talking about? Which probably hasn't changed much, by the way. I just don't watch the news anymore, but sure. I'm guessing it's probably still similar. What do they talk about? They talk about losing weight, how to look good. They don't really dive into how to be well. Mm-hmm. How do we actually truly care for this body that we have, that we're born with? That's not in the mainstream. And so you really have to dig for it. And so I met my husband in college, and one of his family members, a married couple, they were going through an autoimmune situation with, it was my husband's sister's husband, so my brother-in-law now, autoimmune issue. And they started the vegan diet and really focusing on organic, and it was really tremendously helping him. And that having those conversations with them was really the first time I spoke to anybody that was actually doing something different. Everyone in my life was going to fast food restaurants and eating just the packaged stuff off the grocery stores and drinking whatever from whatever, and I remember just being like, wait, these people are doing something different. I want to know more. And so I feel really lucky that I had that opportunity, because it was a big changing point for me. And they lived in Chicago, and I visited for a weekend. It was a 3-day span. And in that 3 days, I didn't eat meat or any dairy because that's the way they ate. And I remember that was the pivotal moment for me. I was like, oh my gosh, I've never felt this good. I remember thinking like, it felt like a miracle to me, because when you grow up, and what I've come to realize now is that I really grew up unwell. There's a lot of things, and there's no judgment here, but, I was a C-section baby. I never was breastfed by my mother. I got all the vaccinations. My dad, I was talking to him a couple of years ago, and he was recounting all the times I was on antibiotics as a kid, which I didn't realize. And so I started to piece together my childhood of kind of an unwell probably somewhat normal, but
Mm-hmm.
sets you up for just kind of unwellness and not living to your highest potential. So going through that weekend and learning about veganism, I became very interested and, took dairy out of my diet and became, started with vegetarianism and then into veganism. And then I learned about raw food. Eventually took gluten out of my diet. So the gluten and dairy coming out of my diet were huge life changers for me. So I know that my body does not want dairy or gluten. Whether it be an allergy, I don't know, but it certainly doesn't want it in there. So,
Sure.
and then I was working in a corporate job, and kind of, my soul was stirring a little bit, and doing some research there on my computer, and came upon this culinary school, and something hit me like a lightning bolt. And I was like drawn to it like bees to a flower or something. Like, I just was like, oh my God, I have got to go to this school in some way. I've got to make this happen. And there's no way I could do it and still work. It was, pretty intensive. And I remember going home and telling my husband, I think I'm supposed to quit my job and become a raw food chef. And, he was like, come again? And luckily my husband's amazing and trusted in me, and we figured it out, and I went on that journey. I went and became a raw food chef. And really it was more than just becoming a chef. It was really this intensive training on how to use food as medicine and how to teach that to other people. So that's what I started to do. And at this point I was also a massage therapist. I had gone to school at night for a while prior to that. And so I was kind of had that business on the side. And so I started to create this kind of wellness business for myself, doing massage therapy. And so I had started to feel really great, right? I mean, I was just, I complete night and day from where I was in college. But there were still some issues with my hormone levels.
Mm-hmm.
And I had gone through a period where I didn't have a period for almost 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And for the first year, I was like, but you know what I mean? Like, you just kind of wait for it to come. And I was like, well, maybe next month. And kind of before I knew it, it was a year. And I was like, maybe
Like,
I need to, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe I need to check this out,
Yeah.
And I just had the worst experiences with doctors, not really listening to me, which I've experienced many times in my life. But like not really wanting to know anything to do with my diet, my lifestyle, just looking at a couple of symptoms and saying, well, you need to get on this, this, and this. And if you don't do this soon, you're never going to have kids. And it was like, I was nearing my 30s, and I didn't want kids yet, but I was being like kind of strong-armed and scared by these doctors into, you better do this or this, or you'll never be able to have what you want in your life, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Telling me to go. And at one point I was literally sitting in the office of an infertility clinic. And I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, I don't even want kids, right? Like, it just was like, what has happened? And I was frightened, I thought basically I was treated like there was something really wrong with me. I was broken and I needed to be fixed. And the only way to be fixed was through pills.
Yep.
Right. And then potential surgery. So, and they didn't even know, there was actually no diagnosis. No one could actually give any kind of real clarification. They were just throwing things at it. So somebody that I knew mentioned my abdominal therapy to me. And I was like, and she was like, I really think you should check this out. And I was like, okay. So I did. I went to see this woman who's still a very dear friend to me to this day. And it changed my life on another level, right? So it's kind of part of my journey, going through the food journey and starting my business, all of it to say, I was trying to find my own wellness. And so I learned about my abdominal therapy. I'm sure you've talked about it here on your podcast. I'm sure your listeners are familiar, but for me, it was new, and it was amazing to learn about how important the womb and the uterus is, and how women and cultures have been caring for the womb for thousands of years, with just their hands and with steaming and with gentle massage and herbs, and so between that and starting a Chinese herb protocol, within 12 days of starting the Chinese herb protocol, my period came back. And then after almost 3 years, and then with doing my abdominal massage, it really regulated my periods, and was able to get pregnant pretty darn quick from just like from the time we started trying. It was very quick.
Yeah, when your uterus is ready, it's ready. That kind of happened to me after a couple of years of my abdominal massage. And I didn't go because of I wanted to get pregnant, but I would say that really helped. My uterus became bright, or what can I say now? Bright and shiny. Not shite.
Yeah.
Bright and shiny. And I remember my friend being like, be careful, because might be some baby spirits hanging around, like, you're ready. And but it is amazing how between herbs and caring for the uterus, and I'm glad we're talking about this. I actually have not interviewed anyone who does my abdominal massage yet, but that is on my list.
Okay.
Because I think, and I've talked about it, I think it is the most amazing thing in the world. And so I am glad that helped you.
Yeah.
The reason I love that you're sharing your story, and this is why I always ask my guests to share the story, is because, for one, I'm like, I totally had a very parallel story. Couple differences, but very parallel to yours. And or have a story, whatever. Mm-hmm. But I know our listeners out there, like, these are the things that women don't talk about, and it's good that you're sharing this. This is why I have the podcast. This is why you're sharing your wisdom with the world, because we are all go through this journey and, trying to find these answers. And it's challenging and also depressing. It can be depressing, just like your journey going to doctor after doctor who doesn't listen to you, who says it's all in your head and that sort of stuff. So I'm really thankful that you're sharing so openly, because, a lot of people who know you, especially here in Indianapolis, and as I know you, like, you're like the queen of natural living and health. But not everybody knows that you went through this journey. And I think that's important for people to know, because they just see where you are now. But you went through years of investigating and questioning and researching and learning to bring your health to its most vibrant state and heal. And of course, there's always layers of the onion to peel back on our healing journeys. But now you have so much wisdom to share with other women who, are they're going down a similar path and looking for an alternative. So I just wanted to take a moment to say I'm appreciative of that.
Well, thank you for saying that. That's exactly why I share so openly. That's kind of my personality anyway. Like, I like to talk about the things that nobody else talks about, because it's important. And we're still in a little, well, I'll just say it. We're in a patriarchal, society, and we're still working our way out of that. And women, I mean, it's crazy to me that it took me that long to find someone that could actually talk to me about my uterus.
Right?
Like, why isn't that the norm? Why didn't I know about that when I was 14, when I was having my first period? It's like I didn't fully learn about my full cycle and how everything worked until my late 20s into my 30s. Yeah. And I want better for us, because women are so powerful, right? Men and women both are powerful. We're all important. but just focusing on women right now, we're so powerful. I mean, we literally have the portal to life inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we have children or not, that doesn't matter. You know, whether we choose to bring a physical child into this world in this lifetime or not, we still have that power inside of us in the womb. And the womb is just a power center. And when it's not aligned and when it is not cared for, I mean, I learned how to talk to my uterus, which I know sounds woo-woo, and you know, those things can sound like, oh gosh, here we go.
But I get it. I totally
Right.
get it. So you're normal.
Okay. So, you know, and I remember the first time I literally looked down at her, put my hands over her and said, I love you. I'm so sorry for not, you know, I had cursed her. You know what I mean? For all the during the early years of my period. And I had, you know, there are just things that you go through with your uterus and you're not taught to like give her love, and she's doing so much, right? She's every cycle from the time we start having a period, she is doing that process. You know, the uterus and the ovaries are going through a very intricate miracle process. You know, I was just saying this to a couple friends the other day, how amazing it is that each one of us are here on this planet. Like how absolutely amazing it is that we're alive right now. When you start to understand how conception happens, and everything that the woman's reproductive system goes through just to make a happy home for that baby, and then what takes place in the womb when the baby is implanted in there, and it's and then not to mention the birthing process and then the breastfeeding. It's all of it is just unbelievably powerful. And I find that pretty much every step of the way, from the time we are young as little girls into adulthood, we are told we are kept from that power. It's either kept from us or we're told to cover it up. We're told to, you know what I mean? That we need to it needs to smell a certain way down there, and we needs to look a certain way. And everybody has an opinion on what your body should look like and how you should use your body. And it's like our bodies are constantly in discussion, you know, and it kind of takes away from the discussion we could all be having, which is like, let's focus on the power of the woman, and let's help us heal. And because, you know, studies, I say studies, you know, just looking around will show you this too, but like there's actual studies that show when a woman is cared for and healthy, our natural inclination is to take care of those around us. Not just our family, but to take care of our communities. That's what we're wired for. Whether we're a mother of an actual human baby or not, we're wired to care for people, things around us. It's harder to do that when we don't feel well. It's harder to do that when we're not aligned. And even being a abdominal therapist, you know, I know that even a little bit of misalignment in your uterus, just being tipped even a small amount, can misalign the energy of your life. And I mean, how would it not, you know, but I didn't think about that when I was younger. It's not even a concept I was aware of. And so I share it with anybody and everybody I can, because I want women to know this information. I want them to feel good. I'm not a practicing therapist right now because I'm running a restaurant.
Busy. You're doing other stuff. But there are plenty of therapists available. And I'll actually link in the show notes to my abdominal massage therapist directory with Dr. Rosita Arvigo, and also the ones I know in Indy.
Yes,
India.
the Arvigo website is a good place to start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think every woman should get abdominal therapy, and even see if it's women's health or pelvic floor physical therapist as well. But I read Sashtun by Dr. Arvigo on Donna Lehio and her apprenticeship. I just loved it. it's all of that work, the whole, that your uterus is your second heart of the woman, that speaks to me so much. And so I'm glad we're touching on it in today's conversation. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
So tell me, because food is medicine, but you ventured even further into the world of herbs, even further than, just starting to take Chinese herbs, and started training in that, and now sharing that wisdom. And I love that you share it within cooking as well as within medicinal remedies, that sort of stuff, because I've really gotten into it. And this is why it was like the perfect time for me to join when you launched Medicine Woman, because I was working, I was having the baby, now she'll be a year next month, which is crazy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so fast. And so I read Dr. Aviva Rome's books throughout my pregnancy, and have the natural children's remedies book or whatever, that too. And I refer to that because I've started to do things. What is useful? What do I need now? But also through learning from you, I made my own elderberry syrup for the first time in the fall, but it was really fun, like making my own medicine. I love that. And so while I'm not completely like gardening or anything yet, which may come one day, I have before, but just have not recently. But like, I really loved working with the herbs, like taking the time to simmer things, making the food recipes that you've shared. So, talk about, if you wouldn't mind sharing, why food is medicine, but herbs especially, why that is so important, and really connecting with the earth too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, so many things.
I know.
So many things. We say herbs as there's so many different types of herbs, and even some foods are considered herbs, like garlic and cayenne can be used as more of a medicinal herb. I got into herbalism. I mean, I've been into it since I was young. I look back at the things I was interested in as a child, and it's been in my blood. And so it's, I think we all have those things that we, it's kind of really telling, like the books that are on your nightstand. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's pretty much all books around herbalism most of the time. And it feeds my soul to read about them, to learn about them, to remind myself over and over again about, what are the benefits of this herb and that herb. And so it's just, it's forever something that I'm going to dive into. And so some reasons why I think it's important to know. Now, I know not everybody's going to want to be an herbalist, and not everyone's going to want to make their own elderberry syrup or stand over a stove for hours. And, but I think that knowing some basics about herbs and having our own apothecary in our home, and I say apothecary, it's not like you're going to have this huge wall of like 100 herbs. I'm saying, even if you had 10 jars of 10 different herbs and you knew how to use them, that is huge. That's really huge. Yeah. And in Medicine Woman, we, as of right now, we're not really diving into like really serious herbs, obscure herbs. We're talking about herbs like sage and rosemary and, like you said, elderberry, and things that are people are already familiar with, and that we might not realize how medicinal they actually are. And so we talk about layering them into our food, and that's a big part of why I think herbalism, or just knowing about herbs and actually consuming herbs, is important, is because we need more nutrients and medicine in our food. We just do. Our food is not as nutrient dense as it was 50 years ago. That's just a fact. Unfortunately, our soil quality is not what it used to be because of the way we farmed, and I know there's a lot of people doing great work out there in re-educating, and there's a lot of upsurgence of small farms, regenerative farming, permaculture, and I'm so happy and excited, and I'm filled with hope seeing that. But it's going to take some time, you know, to recoup what we've done. So as of right now, we really have depleted soil. We have, you know, our water and our air is just not as clean as it used to be. And so if your water and your air isn't clean, your soil cannot be clean, because the water is cycled through the rain and then it rains back down into the soil, right? So if there's chemicals in the water and in the air, it's going to go into the soil, and it is. And our soil is the life of everything, right? That's where everything begins and everything ends. You know, we all go back to the earth. We all come from the earth in some form. And the earth has a microbiome just like we do. So it needs a lot of different, you know, there's lots of bacteria and all kinds of biological activity that happens in a healthy soil. And when it's polluted with chemicals and, you know, all the things, especially pesticides, herbicides, and all of that, it basically kills the soil. The soil can actually be killed, and it can become like a dead, you know, to where things aren't growing in it anymore. And so the large scale farming, especially here in Indiana, Alyssa, you know, living here, if you drive out of the city, what do you see? Big, expansive cornfields and bean fields. And I will admit, there's nostalgia there. They are beautiful. There's something to it. I grew up with that. But the reality is, probably every single one of those fields, at least here in Indiana, is also being sprayed with chemicals. They're all genetically modified fields. And so not only are we then putting the food, the corn, the soy, whatever it is they're growing that's being sprayed, some of that is going to things that are not food. You know, some of that is like corn that they use to produce other things, fuel and stuff like that. But anything that is becoming food in some form, that's what we're taking in. You know, we're taking in this like depleted plant material grown in dead soil. The only way it's actually really growing is because they continue to spray fertilizers, chemicals, pesticides, herbicides, and the cycle continues. And that really started in the 90s heavily, you know, really genetically modifying and spraying. And so over time, they've had to use more and more, because that's just the way it goes. And they have to continue to use more and more just to get things to grow, because the soil is being more and more depleted. And so that's a cycle that we've been in. Mm-hmm. And so even beyond the corn and the soy, then, you know, you get into something like almonds, you know, just almonds from the grocery store. If you're not buying organic, you're buying almonds that are sprayed. Mm-hmm. And there's all those chemicals on that almond. And just so then to expand that out to every ingredient that you have in your refrigerator, on your cupboard, you know, in your cupboard, on your countertop. And, you know, there's been studies done on like an organic apple versus a conventional apple. And the organic apple has more nutrients, more nutrient value than the non-organic, you know. So there's basic studies like that. But in general, even eating organic, we just need more. We really do. We need to layer in some deeper medicine. And so when I say medicine, obviously I'm not talking about pills. I'm talking about our sages and our rosemaries and our garlic and our ginger. And then we can get into like infusing, you know, say if we're going to use apple cider vinegar to make a salad dressing, well, why not infuse that vinegar with some fresh herbs first?
Which I love that one. I did that. I went and picked herbs for the first time at my friend's place, and made that, infused it, and then I make my own salad dressing anyway. And so I use that as the apple cider. I love that. So
yeah. And how simple is that, right?
Yeah,
it's
it was
super,
so
super
simple and fun. And, you know, but I just had never like messed with that before. I just used apple cider vinegar, but I love that I could add these medicinal properties from the nutrients from, it was, I think, chickweed and something else that you had mentioned.
Yeah.
I think it was like chickweed, nettle, and I can't remember the other one, but yeah, I just love that extra.
Yeah. And I think it ties into what I said before about women naturally wanting to take care of those around them. So
Mm-hmm.
you start with you first. So if somebody's listening to this and they live alone, it's taking care of you is just as important as taking care of anybody else. So we start with ourselves. Like how can we take care of ourselves? But we're naturally inclined to want to take care of those around us. So for me, with my family, when I am making dinner, it's not like, okay, what am I going to plop on the table tonight? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
don't get me wrong. Some nights I feel like that, but
Oh, you're busy. So, yes, but
but
you are
if
more thoughtful about it, I'm sure.
yeah, but I think about, okay, so what can if I'm going to make rice, maybe I can use a broth, some kind of a broth that I made with, it infused with some kind of like medicinal mushroom and some herbs instead of just the water. Or maybe I'll plop in like some seaweed in there with the broth or something just to give it some more minerals, some more nutrients. And over time, if you're doing that in multiple places in your kitchen,
Mm-hmm.
you don't necessarily have to spend hours in the kitchen to do that. It's just over time, you're kind of layering it in. And before you know it, you're adding in medicine from a few different directions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
well, I was going to say, that's what gets me excited. I actually feel excitement when I'm in my kitchen. I'm like, look at me. I'm layering all this medicine in and I feel so good giving it to my family. And I think about my kids and they're setting them up for, like, I think about what I went through and I'm like, if I can get my kids to start out in life without having to go through so much just to get to a baseline of health, I will feel like that's my biggest success ever in life. And
I think that's amazing.
yeah, and I want to share that, I want to share that information with any woman that wants that too, and so that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, no, and I love that you're sharing that. I mean, like I mentioned, that's why I love sharing all of this too, and interviewing people like you, because if women can take back their health and empower themselves, and really you and mentioned like all these things that keep us from connecting with our own power, especially our uterus. If women can take back all of that by connecting, it's just, I think, well, the world would be different completely. But it starts with just doing it for ourselves and then sharing it with our children, like you're mentioning, because I'm doing the same with my daughter. I mean, she's being raised completely different than I was, because I was also raised very similar, not out in the country, but on the west side of Indianapolis. And, I remember going to McDonald's and Dairy Queen all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents didn't know any different. They were 19 and 21 when I was born. They were raised with home cooked meals and that sort of stuff. But that was just sort of the age we were in. I had all my vaccinations and stuff, which were way less than what are required now. But that's a whole nother episode. But and so it's just like just the little things I'm doing with my daughter or you're doing with your children will make a huge difference. So when you were talking about just the connection with the uterus and the food, my niece even said, my niece is 16, she goes, well, Josephine eats way better than most babies. and my niece, I mean, she, there was kind of like, you kind of have to sometimes get them, well, it's a long story. I think it'd take too much time to go into, but she kind of just eats chicken nuggets and whatever, because she wasn't introduced to a lot. And I can see it in her. And I told her, I said, when you start feeling sick, to come to your Aunt Alyssa. But of course, right now, she's a teenager and has to go through that. And I mean, unfortunately, but at least I can be a resource for her when she's ready.
Mm-hmm.
But it was funny that she noticed that, because my daughter's eating, I mean, she has all kinds of stuff, and fresh cut up things, hemp seeds, coconut oil, all kinds of things. And but also, when you were talking about the connection with the uterus and everything, I was thinking about how I address that with my daughter, and I tell her, like, this place is sacred, you know? And I told my mom, I said, nobody ever told us that.
Mm.
And my mom said, no, I was never taught that. And so this whole, like, the wisdom you're sharing and all of this, like, for women to reconnect back to themselves, reconnect back to the earth, and take that power back, not in a masculine energy, like taking power, go to war sort of thing, but in that just knowing yourself and coming home. I think that's really, really important. And so I appreciate that you're sharing all of this.
Thank you. I feel blessed to be able to do it. I feel incredibly blessed. And I often think about what led me to doing this. And even though there was a lot of unwell and sickness that led me on this journey, I'm grateful for it because I've gotten to learn so much. And it's just a joy to share with other people because, well, we need that. And just like you're sharing and you're doing your important work too of introducing people to all these other healers and then sharing your own knowledge. We need as many of us out there as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So my hope is that it becomes more of the norm
Mm-hmm.
than alternative. That taking care of our bodies and knowing how our cycles work and taking care of our womb and all those things becomes part of it becomes normalized and part of what everyone's learning when they're younger and coming of age.
Mm-hmm.
Because it just sets us up, I'm so grateful too. I'm so beyond grateful to know this before having children. So yeah, because it's like, why, if you think, I don't know, it's a whole nother story, but if you think about just what the grocery stores and what the media is telling us. I mean, if you just turn the TV on, it does not take long to see what they're marketing to children.
Oh, it's awful. Yeah.
It's awful. I feel like it's borderline criminal really. And I just think about in what universe do we take such a sacred vessel and pump chemicals and processed cheap food, if you can even call it food,
Mm-hmm.
into this precious vessel when it's still growing its brain and all of its organs and it's learning, about the world and it's going to school and trying to learn. And why in the world are we giving them? And what it comes down to is really just, greed. It's just
Mm-hmm.
large companies who are really not in it for anything other than to make money.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, again, why I think it's so important. And I call it gaining our health freedom back, because we don't have to know everything. We don't have to go to chef school. We don't have to be an herbalist. All we really have to know is like 5 really, know like 5 recipes really well.
Mm-hmm.
Know how to make rice, know how to make beans, know how to like saute up some veggies, know how to do like some roasted veggies, whatever. Pick your 5 to 10 recipes that you know really well. And that can carry you through. You don't need to know much more than that. And then you learn about a few herbs. You've got them on hand. And so, because we want to be ready, when cold and flu season is coming too, it's like, I don't want to be in a position where I'm like looking around like, oops, we're sick. What do we do? Who do we call? Like, oh, I already know. I know what herbs I can take. I've already got them in my house. I'm already growing them, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's just, if we look around, we kind of, unfortunately, but also fortunately, because it connects us to the earth in doing this, but we do need to become our own advocates. We need to become, to wrap it in a pretty bow here, but we need to become the medicine women of our home, if that's calling to us, because we are gaining some of that power back. And we're not outsourcing all of the knowledge and all of what we need to do to care for ourselves and our family to somebody else. Because these days, it's more and more challenging to find somebody, a company, or even, I will say, even finding doctors who are really in it for you, really in it to truly, truly want to get to the bottom of like, what's going on with you? What do we need to do to take care of you? Like, it needs to be us. Not that we can't sometimes find really amazing practitioners, but they're not the norm, unfortunately, right now, at least not in my experience. You really got to search. And so we can supplement those needs to go to the doctor with what we're doing at home, and my goal is to have to go to the doctor as little as possible. I still will do that when needed, but like, man, if we can take care of some of those mild things at home, why not? It saves us money, time, effort, all those things. So yeah.
I'm totally with you there. And I've really enjoyed learning from you and other people just how to make my own medicine, take things back, how to enhance what I'm eating at home, or how to eat in a different way even, and those sort of things, because of course how I eat now is way different than how I grew up. Or in college, you were reminding me of going down to I can't remember what it was called, and getting peanut butter shakes and those kind of
oh my gosh,
they were delicious. But I remember being sick a lot in college too, so it was kind of bringing back some memories, your story. But I think it is important, and it's a really affordable way too, because there's a lot of things out there, and people think, oh gosh, how can I change the way I live? It seems like all this stuff costs so much and blah 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 blah. That's usually the excuse that people say. But it's like these little things, and making your own things can be a not only a beautiful way to take back your health, but also an affordable way. And you have to start somewhere. It's not like you don't have to overhaul everything, just like you were mentioning, the simple dishes, and learning to do that, because a lot of people don't even cook at all anymore, because we've become so busy, this crazy busy culture, and we have to take back our time as well. And luckily, even the whole going through the COVID coronavirus stuff, I think it did help remind people what things are important. So maybe there is a shift coming. It will just take time, and with women like you, sharing wisdom with other women, sharing the wisdom here of what I'm sharing, that sort of stuff, and other practitioners. It will take time, but it's working. Generation by generation, it will shift away from the process, the chemical, that sort of stuff. People will wake up. And I will share a little story with you. Like, this is my example of like, yes, things are shifting. So my parents, they're better, like they're more conscious of where they get their meat and that sort of stuff now. But my dad recently did energy therapy, and he loves it. So like, if my dad is going to do that, like, and now he puts his feet in the grass all the time and connects to the earth, and like, because he saw a huge difference in my niece, and that made him a believer. And then like his diabetic neuropathy, like he could start moving his feet and have some sensation after energy therapy. And I'm like, there is hope for everyone if my father actually was open to something, and especially energy therapy, because we're Catholic. So that's like a no-no. So like, there's hope for everyone, and I think it just takes one person at a time.
Yeah, I agree. And I think for a lot of people, like your dad, he saw it. Sometimes it just takes people seeing someone in their life, which happened to me too with my brother-in-law. I saw someone in my own life, and it gave me kind of the permission, to look into something. And so thank goodness your dad was brave enough and open-minded enough to do that. And that's the cool thing too, is I think that you can go as far or as far with it as you want to go. You don't have to go all the way down into, becoming the medicine woman in the woods or anything like that, which by the way is my goal. But, but you can take it as far as you want to go. And if it's just as far as like your dad putting his feet on the ground and going to an energy therapist, and that's enough for him, that's great. And if people want to take it further than that, that's great too. It's like, it's there for us. And there's so much wonderful information there for us, that it excites me to see people like you, making more of us aware of all the amazing people out there and just the tools. And some of them are so simple. It's almost, it's almost unreal. It's like, wow, like some therapies, like just like the EFT and the putting your feet on the ground. And it's like, wow, why weren't we taught this? This doesn't cost any money. This is literally just doing a few simple steps. And right now I'm really interested in the, have you heard of Wim Hof?
I have.
Okay.
I don't know tons about it, but
I mean, he's not the only person doing this, but he's pretty well known out there, with like the cold therapy and taking the cold showers and people getting in these like really cold ice baths and how it can absolutely change your cardiovascular system and like all your organ systems in a really, really good way. And so like things like that are totally free. You know, that you don't need to spend a lot of money on or have read a lot of books about. You can just take a cold shower every morning. And that's one thing I've been introducing. And it really makes a difference in my energy level in the morning. And it's so simple. It's like 30 seconds to a minute under some cold water.
You're brave.
Yeah. And there's just so many. And so if you, again, like layering the medicine in your food, if you layer some of those things, you know, touch your feet on the ground every day, drink plenty of water, get 15 minutes of sunlight on your skin, take a cold shower, before you know it, those things start to become your lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those, for people that are like just learning about it, it can feel really overwhelming. They look at someone like, you know, like me or you, and they're like, oh my gosh, how do I learn all this? And I think it's great to just start with one thing, you know, just like one thing. And it doesn't have to be all overnight, you know, and people, again, will take it at their own pace.
I completely agree. I thank you for sharing that, because it's a good reminder for everyone that just, you know, doing what you can, starting small and moving forward, and eventually like it will just snowball into your lifestyles a lot different. So I appreciate you being on the show today, Audrey, and sharing everything. I'm going to link in the show notes so everyone knows to your different websites and some things we already spoke about, but doors to Medicine Woman open soon. And so we'll link to that as well, so that, because sometimes we'll have people listen right when this episode comes out, and then sometimes afterwards. So I'll make sure that we link to Medicine Woman, because then, you know, if people, it's an opportunity for people to take health back into their own hand, learn more about herbalism, and really use it as a daily life practice, not just learning to be an herbalist sort of thing. I know I love being a member. It's very helpful. And I'm looking forward to diving into more of the things that are sent every month. So we'll link to that. So when doors open, those will be ready, because I know you only open it up a couple times a year, right?
That's right. Yeah. In the spring and the fall.
Okay, great. Well, thank you again, Audrey, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Alyssa. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Great. So, I want to hear from you. What did you think of today's topic? Direct message me on Instagram or Facebook, or better yet, join the Wild Wisdom Collective, my free Facebook group, and chime in on the discussion. I look forward to hearing your thoughts and insight. And if you love what you're hearing, please take a moment to click the button on your smartphone to subscribe. Or, better yet, write a review and tell me why you love tuning in. And maybe you'll be featured in our listener spotlight on a future episode. I cannot wait to see you again, same time, same place next week. Wild blessings.